Very good evening. From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. I'm Vidushni Sadish Kumar.
I'm Movin Hettiarachi and here are today's headlines. Inoculation of children ages of 18 and 19 years in Colombo district will commence tomorrow. UNICEF says Sri Lanka has successfully mitigated the COVID-19 outbreak. New circular related to the trading of excavated metal, sand, gravel and clay. Steps to provide benefits for state sector employees currently receiving home-based treatment for COVID-19 through the Agrahara insurance scheme. Monetary policy rates of central bank remain unchanged. Now on to those and more stories. Today's top story, the Sri Lanka Central Bank has decided to continue the current monetary policy stance, releasing the monetary policy review today. The Monetary Board of Central Bank of Sri Lanka decided to maintain the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of Central Bank at their current levels of 5% and 6% respectively.
Since the time of the COVID pandemic and over a period of about 1.5 years, you would have seen that the central bank took a very dovish stand where the interest rates were kept as low as possible. Thereafter, a signal was provided in August 2021 where there was a slight increase in the policy rates, which said that there was a need to rein in some of the stimulus. Notwithstanding that fact, we do see the stimulus still activated. We have seen the credit growth at robust numbers. The credit growth in both private sector as well as public sector has been quite strong, and that's why we believe in order to ensure that there is growth momentum which is now presently progressing, we don't need to dampen that, neither do we want to stimulate it any further. So that's the reason why the Monetary Board decided that we would keep the rates steady, and we believe that that's the most appropriate stance for the time being. At the same time, whilst we have used the interest rates for these kinds of stimuli as well as to give signals, there are other policy measures also that we have taken into consideration, which we have already announced in the roadmap that we elaborated on the 1st of October. And through that, we have given the direction in which the central bank would be moving together with the government for the future. We see the need for stronger growth for next year, and we believe that with the tourism opportunities that would arise as a result of the vaccination program that has been put in place by the government, we would see a strong rebound of tourism if the world also gets back to near normalcy or normalcy. That's an area that we have no control over. But the fact that the IMF as well as the World Bank have projected year 22 as a year of fairly strong growth in the range of about 5% and over, that suggests to us that they would have also taken into consideration that certain other factors globally would also take place. So we are looking forward to those strong measures, and that's something that we would be looking forward to in the time to come. But with that strong rebound in the world, we also believe that the current wave of commodity price increases is also a reflection of that situation. And that's something that we need to be guarding against, because that can provide some supply side inflation, and the central bank is keeping a very close tab on that to see how best we are going to manage that situation as well. So going forward, we do see challenges. At the same time, we do see opportunities where there could be strong opportunity for growth, which can, to some extent, mitigate those threats that are emanating from the global advances that would take place in growth as well. So we stand ready to take those steps as and when those are necessary. For the time being, these measures are appropriate. With the policy decision that we have taken, together with the announcements that we have made in our roadmap on 1st of October, we believe stability would be a key factor that we would be able to achieve in the near term and going forward to the longer term as well.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has instructed officials to prepare a mechanism to provide compensation through the Agrahara Insurance Fund for the state sector employees currently receiving home-based treatments for COVID-19. The Prime Minister made these remarks during discussions held with the representatives of trade unions and affiliated trade unions of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna at Temple Trees. The Prime Minister took steps previously to provide assistance from Agrahara Insurance Fund through the provisions from 2021 budget for the state sector employees who have succumbed from COVID-19 infection and receiving treatments for the disease. The attention was directed on the issues between high officials and employees, as well as the need to improve the efficiency in public service. Reiterating the need to improve efficiency and productivity in public service, the Prime Minister said that the officials need to take prompt action in this regard. More local and international training opportunities should be provided for state sector employees. Remarks were made during the discussions on the resumption of pension for state sector employees who have joined public service after 2016. Prime Minister Rajapaksa instructed the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Administration to look into this issue at the earliest. The attention was also directed on the existing irregularities in increasing the pension compared to the cost of living and purchasing activities related to the Department of Railways. Relevant authorities have been informed to look into the existing irregularities in the Department of Railways by the Prime Minister. He also said that the relevant authorities have already been informed to limit expenditures related to state institutions in the face of COVID-19 outbreak. Ministers Gamini Lokuge and Nimal Siripal de Silva, Ministry Secretaries and representatives of the trade unions and affiliated associations were present at this occasion.
The inoculation of children ages of 18 and 19 in Colombo district for COVID-19 will commence tomorrow. The epidemiology unit said that the inoculation of children in the same age category in other districts will be commencing from the 21st. Director of Education of the Colombo Zone, Gian De Silva, said that the relevant facilities have been made in selected schools for the inoculation process tomorrow. He said 4 centres will operate in Colombo Zone. Accordingly, Vishaka Vidyalaya, Thurston College, St. Benedict's College and Vivek Ananda Vidyalaya have been selected and necessary arrangements have been made in these schools for vaccination program. He added that children who have sat for the 2020 examination and the children who are expected to sit for the examination in 2021 will be inoculated under the program. He has said that the national identity card is mandatory to receive the vaccine. He further said that the inoculation program in Colombo Zone will be completed within 21 days.
දින 21ක් තුළ කොළඹ කලාපයේ සීලම් පාසල් අපි ආවරණය කරනවා.
Representatives of UNICEF in Sri Lanka, Christian Scoob, said that Sri Lanka has successfully mitigated the COVID-19 outbreaks thus far. The UNICEF representative made these remarks when he called on Minister Kelia Rambukwala. The meeting was held at a Ministry of Education. The minister said that the home-based COVID-19 treatment program in the country had achieved many successes and managed to reduce the non-necessary traffic of patients to the hospitals through this process. The minister said that Sri Lanka paid great attention to inoculating senior citizens in the country as well. Minister Rambukwala extended his appreciation for the support received from international partners. A total of 527 COVID-19 patients were identified in the country today. The number of active cases in the country is 24,575. 366 recoveries were reported today, increasing the overall tally to 491,604. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services confirmed 21 COVID-19 related deaths occurring in the country yesterday. Director of Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children, Dr. G. Vijay Surya, said that the number of COVID-19 patient admissions and residential patients has considerably reduced. Central Cultural Fund Director, Professor Gamini Ransingha, said that all museums and historic sites in the country will reopen from today under strict health guidelines.
Now on to your World COVID-19 update. The World Health Organization said yesterday its newly formed advisory group on dangerous pathogens may be a last chance to determine the origins of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and urged China to provide data from early cases.
Right now, this is our best chance, and it may be our last chance to understand the origins of this virus.
The World Health Organization announced the creation of a newly formed group Wednesday that it called its last chance to determine the origins of COVID-19 and urged China to cooperate. The question of where and how the coronavirus came to be has become a highly volatile issue and a particularly touchy topic for China, where the first cases emerged in late 2019. Mike Ryan, WHO's head of emergencies program, urged calm amid a renewed bid for answers.
That is a human endeavor to understand a virus that has stopped our whole world. And I would ask everyone, countries, journalists, and everybody else, to create a little space for that discussion to happen.
A WHO-led team spent 4 weeks in and around Wuhan, China earlier this year with Chinese scientists probing the earliest known cases of the coronavirus, and said in a joint report in March that the virus had probably been transmitted from bats to humans through another animal, but further research was needed. WHO Director Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said that the investigation was hampered by a lack of raw data and has called for lab audits. China has repeatedly dismissed theories that the virus leaked from one of its laboratories and has said no more visits are needed. But the WHO believes otherwise.
And we very much hope that there will be further missions to China and other countries.
In an editorial in the journal Science, the WHO said that detailed investigations of the earliest known and suspected cases in China prior to December of 2019 were still needed, including analyses of stored blood samples from 2019 in Wuhan. Chen Xu, China's ambassador to the UN, noted that international teams had been sent to China twice already, and that, quote, it is time to send teams to other places.
Moving back to a local update, Telecommunication Regulatory Commission has taken steps to accelerate the telecommunication infrastructure development in rural areas. Remarks were made on this program at the virtual media briefing held from Presidential Media Center under the theme Gamata Sannivedana.
Digital කරණය වූ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවක් පිළිබඳව ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ දැක්ම මහ පොළොවේ යථාර්ථයක් කරන්නට විදුලි සංදේශ
President's media spokesman Kingsley Ratnayaka said that the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission is carrying out a greater duty to fulfill the President's vision for a digitalized Sri Lanka. Accordingly, he said that various projects have been undertaken by the Commission to create a digital Sri Lanka. One of the main initiatives undertaken by the Commission is Gamata Sannivedana program.
ප්‍රසිද්ධියට පත්වෙච්ච ඡායාරූප වාර්තා වැඩසටහන් මේ වගේ දේවල් රැසක් තියෙද්දි කොහොමද මේ ගමට sannivedanaya වෙන්නේ කරාද කරන්න පුළුවන්ද
2023 වෙනකොට
Director General of Telecommunication Regulatory Commission Oshit Senanayaka said that the current objective of the Commission is to provide internet facilities for 65% of the households in the country. He further said that steps have been taken to provide faculties for 70% on individual basis. The need for the methodology to accelerate the digitalization process became more prominent with the COVID-19 outbreak. He added, the Director General further said that the towers for the Gamata Sannivedana program are a 100% Sri Lankan product, which was commenced from last year. He said that their objective is to provide coverage for 10 districts before the end of this year. He said that Sri Lanka is the only country in the world to digitalize the free education concept.
A new circular will be issued to give effect to the process of issuance of permit for mining, transportation and trade of metals, sand, soil, gravel and clay. The new circular will be issued in accordance to the decision reached by the Cabinet of Ministers. The President appointed a presidential task force to study the exploration of geological resources for development, priorities and self-employment, and to meet micro-level economic livelihood needs of those engaged in traditional vocations and the sources and the methodologies of extraction of such resources. The task force is entrusted with the task of introducing a system to issue permits while giving priority to the environmental conservation in order to avoid difficulties faced by the public. private institutions as well as statutory government agencies in the process of excavation, transportation and trade of geological resources. Cabinet approval has been granted to the Code of Mining Minerals, Transportation and Trade for Construction Industry, which contains instructions on new methods prepared by the Presidential Task Force. Accordingly, Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara has directed through the new circular that all the relevant heads of institutions should make immediate steps to regulate mining, transportation and trade of metals, sand, soil, gravel and clay. The Presidential Task Force on Geological Resources has suggested that the tasks such as early identification of geological resources, excavation sites, mapping them, identification of institutions that own the geological resources and obtaining the necessary clearances certificates should be implemented within a single agency structure. All relevant statutory government agencies should be created to reform the administrative structure required to operate within a single system instead of methods previously implemented in isolation. The circular stated that the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau should take necessary steps to completely reorganize. The GAR program has been implemented so far with regards to issuance of permits as instructed with the chapters of the Code. The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau should take steps to prevent clients from obtaining clearances from several institutions unnecessarily. The circular also states that the steps should be taken to delegate necessary powers to district secretaries, divisional secretaries, Gramanildaris and other officials and to provide them with the necessary legal documents as proposed. Steps should be taken to issue relevant clearances for environmental related certificates within the time period recommended by the Presidential Task Force. There is a possibility that existing regulations, gadget notifications and circulars should be amended. Since the necessary approval has been granted by the Cabinet, the heads of relevant statutory bodies should take action to complete amendments if there are any without delay. Prior to the issuance of the mining permit, the Geological Survey and the Mines Bureau collects the fees on behalf of all relevant government agencies, and the money should be credited to an income resource under the Ministry of Environment. The circular further states that no fee other than those stipulated by the manual for mining, transport and trade using construction industry should be imposed or revised without consent of the Finance Ministry Secretary. The Presidential Task Force has observed that the environmental issues occurring during the excavation of geological resources, the public protests that are taking place over them, as well as the lack of coordination between the agencies in providing solutions to the issues. All institutions should make concerted efforts to implement the recommendations and to properly address the opposition made by the public. The district and national monitoring committees should meet immediately to take necessary decisions. The Ministry of Environment should implement the necessary program and monitor implementation in order to obtain maximum support from all statutory bodies for the method approved by the Cabinet. Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara had further stated that informed through circulars to provide him with comprehensive report if a statutory body fails to provide the necessary support in this regard.
Minister Professor G.L. Piri sought the cooperation of the diplomatic community in the resumption of tourism and economic activity in the country. The minister expressed his appreciation to the diplomatic community for the support and assistance during the COVID-19 crisis, including all UN agencies, donors and multilateral financial institutions. Minister Professor G.L. Piri addressed the Colombo-based diplomatic community at the Foreign Ministry Auditorium yesterday. At the outset, the minister appreciated his first opportunity to meet with the entire diplomatic corps collectively following his assumption of duties as foreign minister some weeks ago. The objective of the meeting was to cordially brief the diplomatic community on recent developments of interest to them. Minister Piri also briefed the diplomatic community on Sri Lanka's stance at the United Nations General Assembly to stand in solidarity with global efforts to address pressing issues which required a collective approach from all countries, big and small. The minister also recalled his statement to the 48th session of the UN Human Rights Council, where he outlined Sri Lanka's ongoing cooperation with the Council as well as the progress made on reconciliation and human rights through domestic institutions. However, Sri Lanka rejects the establishment of an external mechanism when domestic processes were ongoing. The minister also shared information relating to progress on the process of constitutional reform and the provincial council elections. The minister further referred to the recent visits from the EU in the context of the Joint Commission as well as to review the implementation of the GSP+. The minister expressed satisfaction that the discussions were held in a cordial manner and that officials have taken note of outstanding matters. The minister recalled that the continuation of GSP+ is vital for the Sri Lankan economy, not only in the apparel sector, but also in other areas of bilateral trade. The members of the diplomatic community extended his gratitude to the minister for his engagement and appreciated the opportunity provided to engage on issues of interest to them.
The Mahasangha says that teachers and principals should abstain from continuing to protest action if they truly care for the education of the children. They have pointed out that the entire nation is waiting for a decision of the teachers' trade union in this regard. Meanwhile, officials of the Treasury, during a discussion between the Prime Minister and the representatives of teacher principal trade unions, explained on the difficulty to extend salary increments as a whole. The officials from the Treasury said that the total of 10 billion rupees worth of provisions were allocated on a monthly basis for the salaries of teachers and principals. He said that according to the recommendations of the Cabinet Subcommittee, the provisions worth 2.4 billion rupees is required for the salary increments. He said that 30 billion rupees should be allocated additionally in the Treasury for salary payments per this year. He said that an overall 140 billion rupees has been allocated in this regard amidst the difficult period at present.
අසීරු අවස්ථාවක ඉන්නේ අපිට අවුරුද්දකට මේක එකපාර දුන්නොත් අපිට වැය කරන්න වෙනවා බිලියන 140කට ආසන්න ප්‍රමාණයක් අපිට අයවැය ඇතුලේ මේක දරා ගන්න.
Mahasangha pointed out the need to resume educational activities in order to safeguard the future of the children. Venerable Venduruwe Upalithera said that responsibility to produce a sensitive generation in the country is vested with the teachers. He added that the present educational system has been formulated to safeguard the future of the children. He said that the Dhamma schools are reopening with the educational activities of children at present.
අපි වික්ෂූන් වහන්සේලා වශයෙන් දහම් පාසල් වල දරුවන්ට උගන්වනවා. මේ වික්ෂූන් වහන්සේලා පෙනී සිටින්නේ මහ ජනතාවගේ ඒ දුවා දරුවන් යහපත් මගකට ගැනීමටයි. ඒ යහපත් තත්වයට ඒ දරුවා නොගත්තොත් අනාගතයේදී භයානක තත්වයක් උදා වෙනවා.
Meanwhile, the principals have indicated that all necessary steps have been taken to reopen schools. Principal of St. John's College, Nugegoda, Buddhika Attanayaka said that most of the parents are concerned over the disruption of education of their children. Therefore, he said that parents reject the action taken by the teachers over this issue.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Agriculture says that an agreement was reached between the government and agrarian organizations over the paddy cultivation in Maha season. The discussion was held between the government and Sri Lanka National Agrarian Organization Federation. Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage said that he agrees with the policy decision amidst many criticisms. He said that he would not challenge the decision taken by the President and the Prime Minister in this regard. He further said that this initiative will bring many benefits to the farmer community. The minister said that a request was made to provide the fertilizer to proceed with the cultivational activities related to upcoming Maha season. Therefore, he said that the relevant fertilizer quantities will be provided for the farmer communities on time. He also said that the responsibility for the quality of the fertilizer will be taken up by him on behalf of the government.
Awarding of the National Vocational Qualification 4 certificate, artists who complete the first ever bridal dressing course in beauty culture field was conducted today. The certificates were awarded under the RPL system. The certificate course was organized by the National Apprentice and Industrial Training Authority. The ceremony was held with the participation of the Minister Nama Rajapaksa in Hambantota. Accordingly, NVQ4 RPL certificates were present for experts in the beauty culture field. State Minister Sita Arambepala, Chairman of the National Apprentice and Industrial Authority Nalin Gamlath were present in the occasion. Minister Namal Rajapaksa engaged in an observational tour at the Beliata Technical College this morning. State Minister Sita Arambepala was also present at this occasion. The final examination for the apprentice who followed the house wiring technical course was also held at the college today, and the minister engaged in cordial discussion with them.
Sri Lanka held the first foreign ministry-level virtual bilateral consultations with Algeria recently, and the discussions focused on strengthening political, economic, social and cultural ties. In keeping with the government policy of further expanding ties with the African region, close engagement with Algeria, which is the lead economy in North Africa, is envisaged. The two sides noted the total trade last year stood $5.39 million and Sri Lanka's exports to Algeria amounted to only $0.63 million while Sri Lanka's imports from Algeria amounted to $4.76 million. As a major exporter of petroleum and LP gas, the trade relations with Algeria have mainly been in the energy sector. However, potential to further increase exports, particularly tea, spices, coconut products and apparel, were explored. A virtual meeting with the Chambers of Commerce of both countries is expected to take this process forward. Recalling the long-standing bilateral relations, the two sides agreed to celebrate the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations in a fitting manner next year. The two countries expressed keen interest to focus bilateral cooperation in the environment and climate change, power and energy and tourism sectors. Further strengthening defense and counter-terrorism cooperation were also discussed.
Minister S.M. Chandrasena instructed the relevant authorities to prepare an accelerated program to distribute organic fertilizer for the farmers in Anuradhapura district today. He made these remarks during a discussion held yesterday on the distribution of organic fertilizer in the Anuradhapura district committee members. Reports have indicated that sufficient quantities of organic fertilizer have been distributed to all fertilizer outlets in the district. A resident in Valahuduna area has cultivated his land with organic fertilizer. Accordingly, he has cultivated various types of vegetables in the land plots of about 1 acre. Mr. Vikramarachi prepares his organic fertilizer required for cultivations. The relevant technical knowledge for the fertilizer production has been provided by the Agrarian Services Office.
Senior journalist Wasantapriya Ramanayaka had bid adieu to the nation. He was 67 of age at his demise. Born in 1953 in Unawatuna area, Galle, late senior journalist Ramanayaka obtained his education from Vidyaloka Mahavidyalaya before entering Galle Technical College. Subsequently, he joined the Building Material Corporation as an audit officer and took an interest in journalism during his time at the corporation. He assumed the position of chief editor of Nivahana and Peramag magazines published by the corporation. He then entered into politics as a young activist of the Sri Lanka Communist Party. Subsequently, he assumed a director post in the Government Information Department and assumed the chairman position of the Associated Newspapers of Ceylon Limited and as a member of a director board of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation. He was also the director media for DOM President Maithripala Sirisena. He was a renowned journalist who had an immense popularity among the readership for his political columns in various newspapers. The remains of late Wasantapriya Ramanayaka are kept at a private funeral parlour. The final rites will be held tomorrow at 3 p.m. at Borala Cemetery.
That's it for tonight's English News telecast. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Good night.